Robbie LaMattina, thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure. Robbie is a real estate investor, an entrepreneur. He has his own experience in addiction and recovery that we'll get into in a second. But thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got linked up. So my first question for you is, tell us a little bit about your journey in recovery, how you found addiction initially, and how you overcame some of those obstacles to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me on. And, you know, there's so much to say. So feel free, because I can just keep talking. Feel free to interject with more questions.
I will.
But, yeah, I grew up in, a broken home. Parents separated when I was young. My mom ended up becoming an addict. She had some health issues, got prescribed medication, got addicted. And so, as a kid, I didn't really have a lot of supervision, and I started partying young, drinking as a teenager, smoking weed, and, really just kind of numbing, that emptiness that I had inside. And, I went down that path, and I started as a 14, 15-year-old. I started, selling weed, and I was like a little hustler guy. I felt powerful. I had something that people wanted, and I built this whole identity around this. Like, I was this person, and it served me for a while, gave me some purpose. I felt good. But really, I was still empty inside. I was still masking that kind of pain that I had. And so, I continued down that path. And I just remember being like 16. I was all done with going to school. I dropped out, and I kind of went full in on this hustler lifestyle, so to speak. And, I was making a lot of money for a young kid. And I just felt like I was on top of the world for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It works until it doesn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, then I started experimenting with pills, with opiates and things like Xanax and, other pills. And I really, I liked that feeling, and so I started, doing pills daily, and then I myself got addicted. Yeah. And I was 17 years old. I was addicted to opiates, and, pretty broken at that point, just pretty lost, a young teenager, just lost, didn't really have any direction. And then things got worse. I started experimenting with heroin. I was 20 years old. And by that time, there was a transition. I remember it I call it from going from being an addict to being a junkie, and I started doing things I never thought I would do. I started stealing, robbing people, whatever I can do to get another bag, so I didn't have to feel that emptiness and that pain, what I mean?
Yeah. Where'd that pain stem from? What was that for you? Was it your parents' separation, or?
Yeah, I think really just watching my mom's life kind of unravel as a kid. Yeah. And seeing that kind of firsthand, not really understanding what it was doing to me at the time. But, just seeing her kind of become an addict and not be present, you know, like she was there, but she wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Was there a part of you that felt connected through addiction with her?
Yeah, because for sure, and even more part of my story as it unfolded in more details, but it got to a point where we were actually using drugs together. Okay, yeah. So that's how twisted it was, and in my mind, it was like, I loved my mom so much that I wanted to spend time with her. This is how we did it, right? Yeah. And so twisted, but that was, as a kid, that was what I thought.
Yeah.
You know,
Where was your dad present at all throughout this? Or?
He wasn't not present.
Okay.
But you know, I sort of separated myself from him. You know, and of course, I had a lot of anger towards him, and you know, because of his relationship with my mom as a kid and not understanding all that. And, so I was just a young kid, and I was just angry at everybody and everything. I was just mad at the world. It was my parents. It was the world. It was everything else. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there you were. You found, like, as you mentioned, you found that identity in being a hustler in drugs, and that at a young age, that becomes pretty strong, right? Like when you find your thing in this world where you're kind of angry and struggling to really connect, and there's this emptiness, and you find your thing, it feels like it's empowering, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody wants to feel powerful. You know, they want to feel like they have purpose. They want to feel like they have an identity. They want to feel like people know who they are. They want to feel important, right? And so that's what this did for me temporarily, right? Yeah. And I thought it was you know, a way for me to feel that way. Yeah.
What was rock bottom for you?
You know, I think the heroin addiction brought me to a real rock bottom. You know, I remember getting to the point where I hated myself. I hated the person I'd become. I was just using so much drugs, I didn't care if I lived or died. You know, I had many overdoses in heroin, many Narcan, where they kind of pull you out of these, you know, or I could have died, you know, if nobody was there. You know, so, you know, there was a 3-year period from 20 to 23 where I was really addicted to heroin, and in that bottom, so miserable, you know, and committing crimes and getting arrested, and you know, just not knowing how I'm ever going to get out of this place. You know, I remember surrendering to the fact of, like, I'm always going to be a drug addict. Yeah. Right. Like this is my destiny. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And just being so hopeless. And I just was in that place for years. Yeah.
Once that shame kind of builds up, it gets to that point where there's so much negative momentum in that way, where it just feels like too much to overcome, right?
Yeah, too much to overcome. And then also, just when I've tried to get sober, I failed. So I kept failing at recovery and sobriety. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to give up. I'm going to stop trying, because at least I won't let myself down, and at least I won't let my family down. Yeah. You know, everybody can accept that Robbie he's just an addict. He's just like that, right? So I don't want to give anyone any false hope. I'm just not going to try and get sober anymore. Yeah. Right.
So what changed?
I remember there was a series of events. I had overdosed one weekend. It was my friend's birthday. We went to the beach. I overdosed. We went to pick up drugs. I overdosed in the back of a car. He pulled me out. He gave me CPR. Later on that day, we were at the beach, and we were shooting up in the back of a car, and we got surrounded by the police, and we both went to jail that day. And you know, when I was still in an overdose state when I got to jail, they sent me right to the hospital, and then after that, I had court, and my dad, he was real traumatized, you know, at this point, and I remember he showed up to court with a baby picture, like a picture when I was young. Yeah. And he said to the judge, you know, this was my son. Look at him. Like, this is how he used to look, you know, before he did drugs. Look at him now. Like, he's going to die. Like, Your Honor, you need to put him in jail. I don't know what else to do. Like, he needs to go to jail. Yeah. And then he said, this is his friend. Like, his friend saved his life that day. Like, please, Your Honor, would you drop his charges, but put my son in jail? Wow. And I remember being so angry at my dad. Yeah. In that moment. Yeah. And so that was very pivotal, but it wasn't enough. So I got charged. I got a possession, a Class A felony possession of heroin. The judge had kind of mercy on me. He just saw how bad I was, and he said, like, you need to get help.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if jail's gonna be your solution. He said, but if you get arrested, you have a deferred jail sentence of 2 years. You're automatically going to go to jail for 2 years if you do anything. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. And he said, you need to just get sober. And so I was on probation. I had this sentence over my head, and I couldn't get sober. I remember I had to go check into probation, and I shot up a bunch of heroin and a bunch of cocaine right before I went into check-in because I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
I'm in this probation check-in, and I'm so high, and I'm bouncing around from chair to chair. I can't sit still. I didn't realize, they have the cameras in there and the glass, and they're watching me.
Yeah.
And so they pull me in. They start yelling at me. One of them looks at me and he says, you need to get sober. Like, and also like where I lived, is kind of a small area. So a lot of them knew my family,
Okay.
They knew my dad. My dad's a martial artist, and one of these police officers used to train with my father, and he knew my dad, and he looked at me, he's like, man, he's like, you're gonna go to jail. He's like, or you can go to treatment right now. He's like, and he told me about this treatment program, and it was a long-term program. He said, if you go do this, he said, I won't put you in jail. It was a 12-month program.
Okay.
And so at that point, I was already so broken, and just kind of willing and ready to surrender, And so it was a series of things. It was being broken, hopeless for years, the legal charges, my dad's intervention, and all of it kind of came together to help me,
Yeah. And you did that 1-year program?
Yeah.
Was that out here in California?
It was in New Hampshire, actually.
Oh, that was in New Hampshire?
Yeah, where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was in 2010.
Okay. And then what happened from there?
So I stayed with this. It was kind of like a faith-based recovery program, kind of like more one of the free ones. I didn't have insurance or anything like that, kind of like along the lines of like Salvation Army. Yeah. You live there, you work for them, you just do whatever they say, and you don't leave, and you don't have a phone, and all that stuff. And honestly, it was everything that I needed. It was everything that I needed. I learned how to live my life apart from substances. I quit everything all at once, alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes all at the same time. And I stayed with this group for a couple years, and just learned how to live life, reprogrammed myself, got healthy, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and learned life skills, which were really, really important for me.
How'd you get bought into that process? Because it sounds like even when you first went there, it was kind of just like, I guess I'll do this. But at what point was it a transition or transformation where it was like, you know what, this actually is the path?
I mean, for me, it was definitely like a spiritual awakening, so to speak. I'm a Christian, so I feel like God was leading me. And really, that's you hear people say like the end of yourself is the beginning of God, right? So like, I got to the end of myself, and I feel like, I got to this place, and I was really thrown off because it was a very spiritual Christian program, and I'm like, man, this place is weird. I never been around anything like this, but it turned out this is exactly what I needed. And I just seen these guys that were doing this program, and they were different, and the leadership there was different, and it was very militant, in a way. Yeah. But it was honestly like in a way, I needed structure. I needed rules. I was so lawless in my life.
Yeah.
You know, there was just the way I lived my life. You know, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to live this way. Like in a lot of, you know, I needed somebody to tell me like, hey, like you know, there's a better way to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and so being there, being around that, being in that environment, you know, it was still tough. I remember for the first month, you know, still wanting to leave there. In just at times, you know, you get those urges, those cravings, and you wanna split.
Yeah.
But
and you probably see the hard work in front of you if you stay, where it feels like a mountain, right?
Yeah.
It's like it would be easier to just leave.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially once you start feeling better physically, you know, the ego steps in. You're like, oh, you got this.
Yeah.
You know, you got it all figured out now. You know?
I don't need this. I could do this on my own.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're doing great. So
then how did you come out here? How did you start your career in entrepreneurship, in real estate? How did that all play out? How did you leave that program in New Hampshire and, you know, move forward with the rest of your life?
Yeah, so from there, that program, I transitioned. You know, I was very involved with like church stuff. I worked. I was involved in my community, and I was really just searching for like what was next. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I remember one of my best friends, he flew out to California to get sober around maybe shortly after I did. He went to California, he got sober, and he started working for this addiction treatment center. And he was working in the call center. He was kind of like that guy that took the calls, the crisis calls, people looking for help. And this group was growing, and now he was back home in New Hampshire. He was working remotely, and the company offered me a position to work with him remotely from the East Coast, and he trained me. And so, you know, around that time, I got introduced to kind of this private treatment center world, you know, working for this business. And you know, I always had a dream to kind of, when I got sober, to be able to help people, you know, and, you know, I dreamed about having my own facilities someday to help people. And so I started working for this company, and they, after being there for maybe 6 months, they pitched me on moving to California. You know, they were trying to bring everybody here. They wanted everybody kind of local, centralized, and you know, so they gave me that offer and that opportunity. And at the time, you know, I was I think 27, and I didn't have a lot going on in New Hampshire. You know, I'm like, you know, why not? You know, let me go try out California.
Yeah.
So I packed up my car at the end of 2015. I had a Volkswagen at the time and some clothes, and that was it. Drove cross country and you know, moved into actually one of their sober livings for 2 weeks. They said, you know, we have this sober living, nothing glamorous. You can you know, have this room till you find a place to live. So I moved into this sober living, which was honestly really nice. It was right on the beach in San Clemente with a beach trail. And I mean, that was my intro to Southern California. I'm like, this is
not
incredible.
too shabby.
Not too shabby. It was honestly really nice. And so, you know, I fell in love with California. And shortly after being with this company, I met this couple, and they were opening up a detox in San Clemente. And so they offered me to join them in business. And so I left this company that I was with. I joined this couple, and I started learning the business. I started learning treatment and, you know, it was a medical detox, a residential treatment center. And I really just learned this whole business of recovery and how it works in a private setting. And so, you know, I from that point on, I was working for this couple. I wasn't an owner. And fast forward to 2019, I had worked for them for about a year and a half, and then I did my own thing for, in the business, more consulting and marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, they were, unfortunately, some things had happened for them, and they needed to get out of the business. And so they pitched me on buying them out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so in 2019, I had to pull the money together. I partnered with an investor, and I bought this residential treatment center in San Clemente. And so that was my first kind of being an owner of an addiction treatment center. Yeah.
If you're struggling in your relationships, if you're struggling in your career, if you don't know what direction to take in life, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're anxious, what you need is a blueprint and a framework to identify your obstacles, and you need some techniques to learn how to overcome those obstacles. If you need help getting your life moving in the right direction, send us a message and let's kickstart your transformation today.
You've expanded quite a bit since then. How did you navigate that? Not only did you buy theirs, but I mean, to take it then to the next level. That was you.
Yeah.
How'd you figure that out? I'm sure it came with some bumps along the road, but
it sure did. It sure did. Yeah. I think a lot of times, I believe in life is more about who we're becoming than what we're doing, right? So in order to have what you want to have, you have to become who you need to become, so that when you have what you have, you can sustain it, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of years investing in myself, and I still do, and I'm a firm believer in doing that, and doing things like therapy and coaching and bringing your past to completion, dealing with your past stuff, and just really getting really healthy, and so, I had started that journey, and in business, I feel like that's helped me so much. In business, really stretched me. I've learned so much and grew so much as a person first, and then with business, I believe in slow growth. Everybody gets into a business and they want to be the biggest guy on the block, and especially in the treatment world, man. People come in, they see dollar signs, and they just want to expand and they want to grow, and I've just seen so many of these places go out of business too.
Yeah. Especially in California, it's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, one bad month and it's not an easy business. So right when I took over, COVID happened. It was like the end of 2019, October was when I took over this business, and then we went right into COVID. We did good, it was essential business, and we were able to help people, and I had good internet marketing, and we were able to still get clients in. And so, slowly we built this business, and in each year we grew, and we opened up more locations and added beds. And, now it's been 5 years, it's been a little over 5 years. And, I think I started with 6 beds, a detox. Right now we have 32 detox beds, and then we have 50 sober livings.
Okay.
Sober living beds. Yeah, we have a large outpatient facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's plans to open up, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Texas.
Yeah.
Yep. The next state is Texas. So
how'd you land on Texas, and what led you to that point to want to expand out there?
Yeah. For me, I was always expansion was part of the vision. I want to have many of these facilities nationwide that help people. And, I had an opportunity. I had somebody call me about a property. This was in November, and it was outside of Dallas. And they said, hey, we had this property. It was a facility. During COVID, they shut it down. They couldn't get clients. They turned it into housing. Now the owner was looking to do something with it, and they offered me this property. I flew out there, and this really just put Dallas on the radar. You know, I flew out there, and this property was not the right fit for me. However, now Dallas is on my radar.
Yeah.
You know, and I started doing some market research, and I started going to Dallas and, you know, spending time there and just figuring things out. And I felt like this is where I need to be, you know, and so, you know, and then we found a facility that was for sale, a very large facility. So, yeah, I'm very excited right now.
Yeah, that is very exciting.
Yeah.
How did you figure out the real estate end of things? Because as you said, you worked for this couple, you came up in that business of the treatment world, but real estate was a big part of your business journey. How did you understand that? How did you learn? How did you figure out that perspective of all of your business ventures?
For sure. Yeah, I'm very grateful. You know, I've had great mentors. I don't personally have a formal education, you know, as a high school dropout, but along the way, I paid attention, and I had some great people around me, and I was hungry, you know, to learn and to grow in business. And so the couple that I purchased the detox from, you know, the wife, who's actually a business partner right now, she, you know, that relationship continued, and you know, they were kind of my example, you know, my mentors, and they were involved with real estate all throughout their career. That's where they made their money, and so I really learned from them that, you know, once I started, you know, making money, they're like, you need to buy a house. That's the first thing you need to do, you know, and so. Then I just really made that my business model. You know, that every building that we use for the business, I want to own, right? And so everything that I made from the business, I just reinvested into real estate and acquired more property. And I started doing that in 2020.
Okay.
And so, you know, now the majority of the homes that we have, residential homes, I personally own. A few of them my business partner owns, and I rent one. But, you know, everything else I've personally bought. Yeah.
So you've expanded from what, one facility to how many today? You mentioned the number of beds, but how many different
different houses.
Facilities?
Yeah. So we started with 1 6-bed detox. Now we have 5 residential treatment centers, and then we have 5 sober living homes, and then we have a large office building.
Yeah,
very large. Yeah.
So that's quite a bit of expansion in 5 years.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
What are some of what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned along the way in your business career? If you had one piece of advice that you personally took that was the one maybe shifted your mindset.
Yeah, I would say, you know, be patient, right? Like, so many people rush into things, right? I've learned how to kind of harness myself, so to speak, right? Where, you know, many people will just go pull the trigger on stuff, and I'm a firm believer in doing that. Don't get me wrong. I'm a risk taker, you know, but now my risks are more calculated, you know, and I'm patient, and I wait for the right things to happen. At times you do have to be forceful, right? You want to push the vision and the mission forward. However, you know, you do need to be patient, and I think good things will come, you know, if you don't force everything, right? And so, you know, for me, like, I always have opportunities knocking at my door, but is it the right thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are the biggest guy problems today for the young men out there?
The biggest guy problems?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, just anything in general or business related.
I'd say just for young men that are struggling out there, similar to your journey when you were younger, whether it be addiction, trauma, anything. Yeah. What do you feel are
what are young men struggling with today in today's day and age the most, and what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say number one, I think a lot of men are lacking confidence, and they don't know who they are. And so I think what I would say to that is, invest in yourself and understanding who you are and your identity, and, find healing. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. I talk about recovery. I like to say we're all recovering from something.
I like that.
What are we recovering from? We're recovering from lies that we believed about ourselves that aren't true. So we get free when we untangle from these lies that we believed about ourselves. We begin to grow up in our identity, and we begin to figure out who we are as a person, as a man, and we grow in our confidence, because we don't believe the things that aren't true anymore. We believe the things that are true. We know who we are as a man, and we're able to be the best version of ourselves and give that to the world. And so, I would just encourage every young man to start your recovery journey. Right now, it's not necessarily drugs and alcohol, but it's a freedom journey. It's a growing in self-awareness. It's a growing in emotional intelligence. It's it's maturity, right?
Yeah.
And and I would just say it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have to do this thing alone.
I think it's coming from you. I think that is a strong message. As I mentioned, being at that rock bottom where the shame and the negative momentum may have built up to such a point where it's like you don't care if you live or die, showing that you could, turn around from that and get to this point. I think it's very impressive. And I told you before we jumped on that I think it could be inspirational to a lot of people. I think I could get a little romantic and sappy around these things. So it seemed like you got a little uncomfortable when I mentioned that to you, that I feel like your version of success is the real American dream. Like being at that low of a low to now be a success story. I don't know. Is that something do you still struggle with your success at this point? Or do you feel like you can own it? Do you feel like you deserve it?
I do feel like I deserve it. Okay. I do. There was a time where I didn't. Yeah. For sure. And I feel like I earned it. And I didn't have any handouts. And everything I have is because I made a decision that this is what I'm going to have in my life.
Yeah.
I really invested in myself to become who I am so that I can have what I have and do what I do. And, so I think, I think that I had to see myself. I had to change the picture in my mind of how I saw myself, and I didn't see myself in the past as being on the mountaintop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
You saw yourself much lower down than that.
Yeah. I saw myself as a loser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you get your confidence from? Obviously, it was a journey, but what do you attach your identity to now that gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of value?
100% my faith. My faith in God. That's number one. I think that's where I've found my confidence, my purpose. I think that I have a mindset of eternity, right? That this life here is, there's something beyond this, and I want to be the best version of myself here, and but there's something greater to live for.
Yeah. What's next for you? So obviously expanding into Dallas. What is your vision for the long term? Do you want to be nationwide with your company? Do you want to open even more residentials, go into a different space entirely? Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I definitely see myself staying in this space for the next 10 years, at least, and there could be beyond that. I had a vision to own a hospital in 2020, I remember writing 10-year goals.
Yeah.
And one of my goals was I want to own a hospital. And someone might ask, well, why would you want own a hospital? Because sick people are there. And I want to help people, and that's always been my vision. My vision is to help people. And so that's why I'm in this treatment business. I didn't get into this business as an entrepreneur, like an investor to make money. For me, this is like my life's work.
Yeah.
And I see myself continuing to do businesses that will contribute to the world and help people. And so I love the business of recovery because it's so close to home, and I see myself expanding this business nationwide, being in multiple states, and hopefully having thousands of beds that will be able to help people, different types of treatment, not just addiction, but maybe mental health treatment and different programs that help different people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your story could instill a lot of hope in other people that you work with on the client side.
Yeah.
I think you having gone through it shows an example of what it looks like to come out the other side. I like to tell people in my work that the rock bottom or those pain points, it's hard to be happy without those.
Yeah.
Because those create a reference point for us, when you get to the other side, it's like, I remember that pain. And remembering that is what makes the joy joy.
Yeah.
Without pain, joy would cease to exist.
Yeah.
So I find it to be those rock bottoms, the stronger or the lower your rock bottom, the more powerful the joy can be if you get to that point. What would you say about that? Would you agree? Having been at both points?
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree. I think that I stay connected in a way to my past. It's not that it doesn't hurt me, but I remember where I came from and I'm grateful. So I definitely reflect. I'm not that person I was anymore. That person is gone. However, I can look back and I can see how far I've come, and I can be thankful. And I'm thankful every day I wake up as a gift. I'm thankful for this life that I have. I cultivate a lifestyle of gratitude. And I feel like that serves me really well. I think the journey and reflecting on the past can be important. And I think we also have to give ourselves credit, how far we really came. And we can really look back and remember, okay, wow, I have changed a lot. Even year after year, it's like I'm a different person than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm evolving. I have a growth mindset. I'm investing in myself.
I'm curious your thoughts on, I've heard a lot of social media entrepreneurs talking about this concept of self-limiting beliefs and, if you think this way, you're a loser. And I personally feel like that's a simplistic way of looking at it, just winners and losers. I think something along their journey allowed them to maybe see the world a little differently and overcome their obstacles to get to a point of strength where they could see the hope. But I wouldn't necessarily call people that can't think that way losers. I see it as people that just haven't been empowered enough yet to get to that level of thinking that with hope instilled in them. But I'm curious your point of view. Do you separate it between losers and winners? Or I could understand what they're saying, but I'm curious your perspective of how you see it. Is it a more gray area, or do you see it kind of binary?
No, I mean, I just have so much compassion on people who are struggling. So I don't see it that way. It's unfortunate that people are so black and white like that. Yeah. But it's like those people, I feel like they need to grow, the people that just see it that way, because you don't know what somebody's been through. You don't know why somebody's stuck. And you're a therapist and you've worked in this field for a long time, so you understand people, there's reasons for everything. Yeah. There's reasons why people can't overcome certain things. And so my heart breaks for those people, and I want I want them to have what I have, and I want them to be free and to think the way that I do. And I understand it takes some people time, right? Like they might be on this journey. It's kind of like they're not ready yet, right? And so it's like when I talk to that person about getting sober and they're not ready, the conversation that I have with them goes in one ear and out the other. They're just not hearing me.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but they're stuck, right?
Yeah.
And so like until they're ready, then there's nothing that I can do. And I have some really good friends that that are poor, and struggle and live paycheck to paycheck. And it's like, dude, I just want to help you.
Yeah.
Like I can't, but it's like, I want you to want something more for yourself. And I don't know how to get you there.
Yeah.
But I wish I could so bad. It frustrates me.
Yeah.
And so I have acceptance for that and people like that. And my hope and my prayers that they'll have kind of an awakening at some point.
Yeah. Something you said I want to touch on, where you said you can't give it to them. And I think that's so important, because if you give them something, like you said earlier, you didn't get any handouts. If you give someone something, then they don't learn how to do it themselves, right? So it's like you want to help them, but you can't just hand it to them on a silver platter, right? Because then they don't grow from that experience at all. It's just given to them.
100%.
But maybe being a mentor to other people the way that people have mentored you, to allow them the opportunity.
Yeah, I think I agree. There's a difference between a handout and a hand up, right? So like, I don't want to give handouts, but I will lift you up. I will help you to come up and level up and get to the next level in your life. And the thing is, but I can't do the work for you. Yeah. And so I've learned that, and I've accepted that some people aren't going to go where I'm going, and I'm sad about it. Yeah. Because especially the people that I care about, I love so much. I'm like, dude, I want you to be free, or I want you to have a better quality of life, or I don't want you to struggle, but you're in this, you're stuck, And so, but it's like what you said, it's like those limiting beliefs, right? It's the way they see themselves. It's what they believe is available for them, or they just don't believe in those possibilities for their lives. Yeah. And so how do you untangle somebody from those mindsets? Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah, and I understand the people that do say, hey, that's a loser mindset, that's a loser mindset. They're trying to motivate them to be, oh, well, I want to be a winner. Let me try to think different. But what I find is that when we say that's a loser mindset, when they revert back to their limiting belief, they're like, oh, I guess I'm a loser. And then it actually has the opposite effect, where they go further into that because they feel validated, like, oh, I guess I can't think like this other person thinks. I guess I am a loser. So it does that exact opposite of motivating them. Yeah. And I like your approach in the sense of just trying to encourage them with compassion and understand that it's not so simple. And it's just approaching them where they're at and understanding they might not be ready yet, but it's just being there for them in a way that maybe they can get to a point where they are ready, where they want that for themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's about support, but not giving them, I like what you said, not giving them a handout, but a hand up. Yeah. I love that. What's one last thing you would say to the people out there to inspire them in a way that you were inspired?
Yeah, I think I would say all things are possible for your life, right? I like to say this, especially when I talk to people, but this applies to anything in life. But when I talk to people that are trying to get sober, I say, listen, I'm not better than you, right? Except I was willing to do whatever it takes to change my life. And I would say the same thing to anybody dealing with anything in their life, or if you're trying to get to the next level, trying to level up, you're trying to start a business, you're trying to, get free from something, whatever it is you're going through in your life, there's no reason you can't do it. You know, if I was able to do it, you can do it. The thing is are you willing to put in the work? You know, and that's the thing. Nobody's going to stop you but you, right? So you have to believe that this is for you. You have to see yourself, you know, on the mountaintop, as I kind of said earlier, is like you have to choose that you're going to see yourself this way. You know, so if I'm able to do it, you could do. The sky's the limit for anybody, right? You just have to be willing to put in the work, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me, Robbie. Again, I hate to be too sappy, but I really think your journey is one that could be an example to so many people out there, just going from that low of lows to where you are today and where you're continuing to grow. I think it's really inspiring. I myself haven't had that exact journey, so I think those words coming from you carries a great deal of weight. You know, you are a living example of what it can look like. So I appreciate you, man. Really, thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's been awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Robbie.